amid all this political turmoil that Matt was talking about, the mood seems to be somewhat optimistic here. 2,500 private equity folks milling about here, doing some deals. How does that all synthesize?
Yeah, I think the good and the bad news is dealing with geopolitical volatility has almost become the new norm, certainly in Europe. And so if you look at where it's slowed down our industry, there are a couple sectors that have become difficult to invest in. We have to deal with a bit more volatility on currency. But the truth is, if you find great businesses, they seem to be immune to what's happening on the geopolitical front. And actually, our outlook is, despite geopolitics, we still see growth in Europe. If you unpeel all the bad news flow, Europe is growing, unemployment is low, and we're still finding great businesses.
So tell us about that. Where are you finding them, and is it the same places they were before, or are you having to hunt a little differently?
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you know, we focus mostly on disruptive businesses and growth companies, and actually the last 5 years we've seen a renaissance of entrepreneurship across Europe, and so we're finding higher quality entrepreneurs, higher quality technology businesses, and mostly businesses that are more ambitious on a global scale. I've been at GA in Europe for 15 years, and the stark contrast is a European entrepreneur 10 years ago was ambitious in his country, maybe in the region. The European entrepreneur today is globally ambitious, which is a really positive sign for us.
And as you say, 15 years in London, what are you seeing on the ground there? I mean, are people here asking you like the big Brexit question and how that affects your life and the firm's life?
It's interesting. So less questions than last year, which is good news because it's just been such a long and dragged out process. The impact it's had has really been on some of our companies that are hiring high quality talent in London. They're struggling to find the right people. I think that's been the real impact in real economy, but it hasn't really impacted the investment world in general yet, and there's still a lot of uncertainty.
Right. So tell us about what you're hearing here, because as I said, pretty buzzy. A lot of talk about dry powder. I feel like that is a constant, but especially it feels like the ante is being upped a little bit. $1.2 trillion, maybe $1.7 trillion, depending on who you talk to. How much is that weighing on folks' minds?
Yeah, so that's been one of the big questions. I think what's interesting in my impression of this conference this year is you can clearly see our industry is maturing and growing. And every time I come back here, there's more people, more funds raising, more investors looking at it. And frankly, it's not surprising. We've broadly delivered as an asset class when others haven't. I think the questioning, interestingly, there was a period of time where it was all about the cycle, and people were asking whether you're picking the wrong time to go into our asset class. Right now, it is about dry powder and competitive positioning, and I view that as really people acknowledging our industry is maturing, right? They want to understand what the fund strategy is over the next 5 years. Are you going to launch new products? How you're differentiated? How you're sourcing good opportunities? And that's really, I think, the source of all these questions around dry powder.
We were talking before we came on, and you were not unique in the sense that yesterday, probably about 20 meetings with big investors. What are the themes you're taking away from them? What's their biggest concern as they talk to you and your peers?
Yeah, the discussion we've had most actively these days is really how are we able to find opportunities at the right risk return? And so do you have the right origination engine? Are you capable of differentiating yourself with entrepreneurs? And for us, it's really been about, our business is simple. We pick the best growth companies in the world, we think, and make ourselves a relevant partner. That's really where investors are curious to understand how we're differentiated.
30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Your biggest single concern for 2019, what could sort of derail all this optimism?
I think for our business, it would be probably more stress around the trade wars and that impacting the global economy. That's the one thing we worry about. I think a lot of the local geopolitical stuff is manageable. And then I think our industry needs to live up to its promises and continue to deliver good returns.